This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe from hackers. For example, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries, streaming services such as DAZN in Spain for those all-important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe if you use public Wi-Fi, such as a college or a cafe. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning that you can even share an account with friends and family. On top of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can even get your money back. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for just over €2 per month and up to 4 months free. Why not scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. What is up, my friends? The weekend has officially started. I hope whatever your plans are that you have a good one, and as always, thank you for coming in and sharing some of your evening with me. Tonight we're going to be speaking about the latest, of course, with a view to Hugo Ekitike and his proposed move to Liverpool. We're going to be trying to figure out, will it be RODRYGO, will it be Gordon, will it be both? And we'll talk about some potential outgoings as well. Things are starting to really heat up now in the transfer window as Liverpool's summer starts to take shape once again after the tragic events around Diogo and his brother. So I hope you're all settled in. I hope you've all got no plans for the next 90 minutes. And yeah, let's have a bit of fun. Right, start off, I guess, with the couple of messages that came in before I started to say thank you. David, thank you, sir. Said, Craig, realistically, what forwards do we sign? Hope you've been well. Well, thank you for your super chat, my friend. And look, great question to kick us off. Zach Jorgensen as well. Thank you, Zach, for becoming a member. Appreciate you, sir. Right, look, I don't really know what to expect here. Now, there have been conversations today that suggest that we're not done with Isak. Now, I really, like I said all the way through this summer, I don't know. I'm not the guy who's going to tell you exactly who we're after. I'm as intrigued as everybody. But right now, there are various stories doing the rounds to suggest that, one, Al Hilal, who are of course 75% owned by the Saudi investment fund that own Newcastle, are looking to sign Alexander Isak. So I don't know how Newcastle fans are feeling about that story or what the likelihood of it is with any implications to our interest. But right now, Liverpool aren't giving up on Isak just yet, despite what, people might shout at me in the comments. The situation for RODRYGO is one that I'm still trying to figure out how sincere that interest is. And the Anthony Gordon stuff just isn't going to go away because he's a sincere, target for Liverpool if we lose Luis Diaz, which it looks like we could well do. So that's probably the kindest way I can start off tonight's stream. But I have a lot of stories to run through, a lot of thought processes to try and figure out. And again, if you are on our WhatsApp, there is a poll up there at the minute where we're asking for your opinion, surprisingly enough, and we asked about the situation. What's the poll in the WhatsApp, actually? Do you know what? I'm forgetting myself here. What was the poll in there? The poll, I can't remember. Somebody will tell me. The poll is in the WhatsApp. Anyway, I've run so many polls there, I can't remember what one I put in the WhatsApp, and I don't want to be rude and use my phone in the middle of the stream. But there is a poll up there, safe to say anyway. It was around the defensive midfielder. That's what it was. We asked, do you think Liverpool need to dip their toes in the summer transfer window for a defensive midfielder? And I want to get your thoughts on that tonight to kick us off. So I'll get this poll up and running, and then we'll jump into the news. Right, let's go. So, do we need to sign a DM in this window? So, do we need to sign a DM in this window? Yes, no, or unsure. I guess if you're voting no, you could well be thinking McConnell by Cetic, and we have a little bit on by Cetic tonight, actually, who is of interest to a few clubs. So yes, no, or unsure. Because it is one topic that we haven't really covered much here on the channel, albeit you guys have asked a few questions about it. Right, so let's see what you think. We'll come back to that one in a moment. Right, let's get cracking with today's story. So, This is where we're at with the state of play. Liverpool are advancing in the deal for Hugo Ekitike. There is no agreement yet with Eintracht Frankfurt, but Liverpool do have an agreement with the player for the 6-year contract, and I think it's a wage of about £200,000 a week, there or thereabouts. But one report suggests that Eintracht Frankfurt are meticulous in their negotiations and that it won't be a deal that will be done in 24 hours or anything like that. So it definitely looks like we're proceeding, and it isn't brinksmanship. It isn't us trying to blag Newcastle into selling us Isak. In fact, Liverpool, according to the reports I've read today, would be open to signing both. Barcelona are the latest club to declare an interest in Darwin Núñez. I'm not joking. Report here from managing Barca said Barcelona are very closely monitoring the situation with Darwin Núñez. Liverpool want €70 million for him. I think they might be a little wrong there. I think Liverpool would probably take about €60 million for Darwin Núñez, but if they want to offer 70, I'm sure we can figure that one out as well. So that's one story tonight. David Hanko, who is a defender that worked with Arna previously as well, he's off to Al Nassr, according to Fabrizio Romano. He said, David Hanko to Al Nassr, here we go. Deal in place for the defender to join the Saudi Pro League side. 33 million plus add-on transfer fee agreed with Feyenoord after long negotiations. So it looks like Saudi Pro League are starting to, well, kick into gear for the summer transfer window. Loving this summer, man. Mind is genuinely blown. So here's one, right? I want to do a little segment that has, well, just my take on a few things, because I was reading through a lot of the comments from a few of our shorts today, and the amount of people who are massively underestimating Florian Wirtz has blown my mind. I'm genuinely reading people in the comments saying that he's shit, he's injury prone, we've overpaid, and we look like fools. And I just thought to myself, really, like genuinely, is that an honest take on our situation with Wirtz? Because if people are expecting Wirtz to flop, I think they're in for a big shock. I really, really do. So with that in mind, what I thought we'd do to kick us off tonight is fire me some questions that you want me to answer about other clubs' business, and I will give you my honest answers on them. Because sometimes when Connor pulls a clip, it doesn't give the whole context of my take on a player. So I want you guys to ask me what I think about the likes of Man United's business or Arsenal's business, because I'm going to be honest and I'm going to be sincere, and I want to know if you agree or disagree. So do fire some questions in, and I'll do my best to get through them. Right, let's get going with the live chat. Who's had the most underrated window so far? Said Ostermorg. Oh, that's a really good question. Who's had the most underrated window so far? It depends who you ask, because I would say Arsenal have done steady business in the window, but not amazing. United, again, we'll go through their business, I'm sure, soon. Spurs are playing a bit of a catch-up, obviously, because Thomas Frank has just come in. Do you know what? I'm going to say us. I'm genuinely going to say us, and here's why. If you look at the reaction to some of the players that we've either signed or are about to sign, people don't seem to rate them. Now, it is copium, of course, from opposition fans, but I think people are massively underestimating the business that we've done, even with Florian Wirtz. It genuinely blew my mind. Loads of shouts for Sunderland having an underrated window. I mean, look, if they can stay up in the Premier League, that would be fantastic achievement for Sunderland, you know. It's been, I think 2 years in a row now, maybe even 3, that we've had the 3 promoted teams come up and back down. So, yeah, if Sunderland can use that Joe Bellingham money well and some of the other fees, it could be interesting, all right. And I must be honest, I've only kept a fleeting glance on their business, so I'm not going to sit here and say I know it all inside out. Right, does it annoy you whenever anybody talks about us selling Diaz? People forget we have Gakpo. I'm not saying I don't want Rodrygo or Gordon, but it annoys me that everybody forgets about Cody, said Karan Patel. I don't think people are forgetting, mate. I look at it that we need 2 left-sided players, and I love the balance that we had with Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo, and equally I will be happy if it's Rodrygo and Anthony Gordon there with Cody Gakpo. But I certainly don't think any of the Liverpool fans that I interact with are forgetting about Cody. It's just Cody and Mo are probably the only 2 forwards at the club that their places are safe for the summer. You know, we don't have to talk about potential moves away for either of them, albeit Bayern had a fleeting interest in Cody Gakpo a while ago. But I certainly don't think anybody's underestimating it. Right, so I want to let's talk about Arsenal's business for a minute, if that's all right. So I want to go through and give you my take on Arsenal's business. And I'm going to include them bringing in striker, obviously, because it looks like they're close to Viktor Gyökeres. So I think Viktor Gyökeres for Arsenal will be a very good deal. I didn't want him at Liverpool because I don't think he's the right fit for the way that we want to play. But I do think he's going to score goals at Arsenal. Do I think maybe he's going to live up to the expectations? Unsure, to be honest with you. I think adding in Zubimendi is a really good piece of business. I think the fee that Arsenal are going to pay for Viktor Gyökeres, I would say, is a good, solid fee. I would say they're not overpaying. I think that they're getting him for a reasonable enough price. We know that there was a release clause for Zubimendi, so you had to pay what you had to pay there, and they managed to convince him where we couldn't. On top of that, I think the signing of Norgard is decent, steady business. Kepa for 5 million. I mean, as a backup keeper, you can't really complain with the experience, albeit I don't think he's great. So I think Arsenal's business has been decent. Certainly, if I rate them out of 10 so far, probably a 6.5 or a 7. But it hasn't struck the fear of God into me. Now, where I do find the most delusion in this window so far is definitely with our friends in Manchester. You know, people talking about Mbeumo and Cunha like they're Messi and Neymar. Look, these are two Premier League tested players, and these are two good players. But to some extent, Cunha went because, I know people will say he only wanted United, but nobody else was willing to take the punt. Nobody else was willing to put down the 62.5 million for a player that, let's be honest, has some temperament issues. So, good signing if you can manage him and keep him in the right mindset. And Mbeumo on the other side, look, I think they paid maybe 5 million too much, but that's irrelevant. And Mbeumo's a good, solid signing, and I'd take him at Liverpool. I've said this before. If we had have lost Mohamed Salah, Bryan Mbeumo probably be right up there at the top of my list. So that's a good, solid piece of business. But they still need to do a lot. And if you look at it from the point of view of Rasmus Højlund, Bryan Mbeumo, and Matheus Cunha cost about £205 million. £205 million for a front three that is probably a 7 out of 10. That seems a lot of money to me. So I think their business has been... I think they're at the stage where they're having to just overpay to convince some players, whether that's because of wages or whether that's the transfer fee. They made this situation with Mbeumo far more complicated than it needed to be. And if I'm a United fan, I'm sitting back and thinking, well, the issues around transfers are still there. That deal should have been done much, much more quickly. Basically, the price was put out there by Brentford and United took too long to get there. But they'll get their man, and to be fair to Mbeumo, he did decide he wanted Manchester United. He had options from the likes of Spurs, and he decided he wanted to go to United. But I think people are forgetting quite how bad they were last year. And United fans feel like they're going to be challenging for a Champions League spot this year. I really don't see it. I think Chelsea are obviously doing steady business. They always have a high turnover of players, so it's really hard to gauge. But João Pedro, I think, is a very good piece of business for them. They still need to sort their defence out, in my opinion. Cole Palmer needs to come good because I think he got away with a lot at the end of last season with, 1 goal in 6 months, something like that. So they have some questions there. But the one that really strikes me as the most odd deal of this window for me so far is Madueke to Arsenal. If I could pick out one transfer that I really just don't understand, it would be that one. You know, I can see Newcastle and Anthony Elanga. I can totally understand why they wanted him. But Madueke, am I missing something here? I know he's English and homegrown, I believe, so you're always going to pay a bit of a premium, but I've not seen anything with him to suggest that he's worth the money Arsenal are paying there. I really haven't. It just feels really, really weird. It's just not a signing that I think is going to work for them, but let's wait and see. Whereas I think if you look at Gyökeres, he'll get goals. There's no denying that. Viktor Gyökeres is going to score goals for Arsenal, but Madueke, I don't know, lads. That to me that doesn't feel straight. Just feels weird. What's that one? Mbeumo is a great signing. He'll certainly help United avoid getting relegated. Mbeumo's a really solid signing and a good character, I would say, to have in the dressing room as well. He's going to work hard, and I think United fans will really like Bryan Mbeumo because he's a very likeable guy, an honest pro. who is a pain in the arse. He's a handful out there on the pitch to deal with, you know. So we will cause problems, but they've big spaces to catch up on to the likes of Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City. And I don't know if they can do it in one window or even in 2 windows. But also you kind of ask, is this going to bite them in the ass? Because they still have to move on some of those, what do I want to call them? Bomb squad players at United? Is that the right phraseology? I don't know. But I think getting rid of the likes of Garnacho, Marcus Rashford and the money that they're on, they might find that a little bit more difficult than they expect. Let's go through a couple of these. Big 6, where are they finishing? Seriously. At the moment, Callum, I don't know how to give you an answer to split Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester City, because I'm not really sure of where Manchester City are going to be. And I also don't know if I'm massively underestimating Chelsea. I don't think over the course of a 38-game season, with Champions League football being back at Stamford Bridge and the impact of the Club World Cup that they've just had, I feel it would be foolish not to think that that will cause them some issues over the season. So I think Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City in some order, and Chelsea will be the best of the rest. You know, Spurs, they're in the Champions League, but they have a lot of ground to make up. And again, they had a lot of injuries to contend with last year. But Thomas Frank's a good coach. Aston Villa, I'm really unsure what to expect from Aston Villa this season coming in. So I would say top 3, and then Chelsea after that, and then 5th and 6th. It's a tough one, really, because Spurs are a bit of a wild card. United, I'm thinking somewhere between 6th and 8th. So yeah, that's my best guess at it, mate. But it's hard to say without the window being finished or without knowing how these squads are really shaping up. And again, without knowing the impact that the Club World Cup will have on Chelsea and City. Probably more on Chelsea as they went further in the tournament. But I do think that is going to show itself to be causing problems as the season goes on. This one from Luke McDermott. As an Irishman, would you take Evan Ferguson? I wouldn't. No, not at the minute. I love the idea of him going over to Roma, which I think has been floated. But he does need to fulfill the promise that he undoubtedly has. He's had some injury concerns as well. I was hopeful Luke, with the move to West Ham, was going to give him an opportunity to really fire himself back into people's minds, especially with so many clubs needing strikers this summer. But yet you've never really seen Evan Ferguson as being linked with any of the top clubs. And I understand that, because I do think his development has stalled a little bit with the injuries and stuff, but have high hopes for Evan. Gavin, South African nations this year as well. Absolutely, mate. And, you know, we have, I think, finally started to get enough cover now. We've got young Rio. We've got, well, Chiesa, if he still stays at the club. So we've got options there. And we've got Frimpong as well. Soboslai can drift out to the right. We can move across one of the left-sided players if needs be. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how clubs are impacted by that as well, especially if there's an injury or two pops up. Right, let's check in on our poll. So we asked, do you think we need to sign DM? I don't know what Diaz window is. Apologies for my stupidity. This window is what I'm trying to say. So yes, no, or unsure. We're nearly at 2,000 votes. We'll let it run a little bit longer. Right, so let's get cracking with some more news. So let's talk about Stefan Bajcetic for a second here. Real Betis, Valencia and Rayo Vallecano are all interested in Stefan Bajcetic after he spent last season on loan with Las Palmas. What do you guys think we should do? Because in our Discord group, there's a bit of a mix. Some people feel that Liverpool should cash in on Stefan Bajcetic. I don't, for what it's worth. I want to see him in pre-season. I want to see Arne get a proper look at him, and I want to see maybe him get some minutes in the friendlies if his hamstring, well, if that surgery is healed up and he's ready to go. If he doesn't, I fear this could be the window he moves on. But there's a player in there. There really is a player in there, and I have very high hopes for Stefan. I hope he can get back playing, because I think he could learn a lot from working with Ryan on the training pitch. And again, like I said, I think he's a solid player. TC said Wharton. Wharton, look, I can get the shout for Adam Wharton. I believe he has some injury concerns, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I didn't follow his whole season with Palace, but I remember him being out with injury for a little bit. Didn't really watch him at Blackburn before he came in there. But Wharton's certainly a name that will be on a lot of clubs' radars. The thing that I think really will stop him this season, though, is you're not going to get more players out of Palace. They're probably going to lose Mark Gay. They may lose Abarichi Eze. Mateta has been mentioned with clubs as well. I can't see them being fleeced for a midfielder on top of that. So I think they probably hang on to him. And there's still a little chink of light for them with the possibility of the Europa League as well. There's an email that's apparently, I think it was, I want to say the Telegraph reported this. Sam Wallace was the journalist, I believe. And there's a piece, I think it's in the Telegraph, that shows an internal email that was sent out, or an email, that was sent out from UEFA that said that March 1st deadline wasn't a stringent deadline. And that may give a little bit of hope to Crystal Palace to get back in to the Europa League. And if they do, then certainly don't expect the likes of Wharton to be moved on. Val said, hey Craig, hope you're well. Thoughts on Madueke joining us? I don't get it, Val. I don't, mate. Obviously, Arteta sees something in Madueke that I'm not seeing or haven't seen yet. But it surprised me because Chelsea mustn't rate him. You know, Chelsea have a young squad and they're building a squad that they hope can stay together for 5, 6, 7 years. And for them to be willing to move Madueke on, I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it. If I was an Arsenal fan, probably wouldn't have gone as far as the petition, but I wouldn't have been happy with that signing. AT Cuber, how are we, my friend? Said, Craig, do you honestly think we will get Rodrygo? I'm getting mixed answers on this one. So depending on who I'm messaging or what I'm reading even, there's mixed takes on this one. So this one here said, Rodrygo is one of the more likely departures from Real Madrid, whose hopes of a fresh start and the new boss Xabi Alonso already look under threat after his bit part role in the Club World Cup. On top of that, though, we know Luis Diaz is probably edging closer to a Liverpool exit. So I think there is interest, but I think I agree with Ben Jacobs. Ben Jacobs was speaking with Grizz, I believe. Shout out to Grizz on his YouTube channel. And he said about Anthony Gordon and Rodrygo, this is what he said. There will be a chance, if the left side is being strengthened, that Liverpool will revisit Anthony Gordon. That's another one to keep an eye on. Rodrygo, it is not that I'm not getting acknowledgement of appreciation from Liverpool, because I am. It's just the idea that they're in Madrid or negotiating or ready to bid feels a bit premature. With Anthony Gordon, it's more than that. Now, I know every time I bring up the name Anthony Gordon, people get angry. But my job here is to tell you the truth and report what I believe is worth you guys knowing about. And I can only say to you that the sincere interest in Anthony Gordon has been there for a long time, going all the way back to last summer, like you've mentioned before. So he might not be the sexiest one, and I'm not saying people in the chat want him, but he is a genuine interest to us, you know. And again, keep an eye with the homegrown aspect of it as well. So I can only tell you what I know, and I know very much that Anthony Gordon is somebody that Liverpool would happily move for. Sarath Kumar said, Craig, do you think we're going in for Isak if Newcastle are willing to sell him in the next 2 years? I think the answer to whether we'll go back in for Isak will depend on how Hugo Ekitike does in his first year. It looks as if Newcastle are going to try to hold on to Isak this summer, whether it be Al Hilal's interest, our interest, or whatever. It looks like that they are trying to dig their heels in and rebuff any approach. So for us, if Hugo Ekitike hits the ground running, scores goals, has a good first season, and Jayden Danns progresses, I don't think we revisit. But if Hugo Ekitike has a measured season or a mixed bag of a first season, maybe Liverpool revisit it. And certainly if Newcastle can't get him to extend, 2 years to go next summer feels like the time that they really have to start thinking about selling. But I stand over what I said over the last week. Personally, sincerely, no banter, I think Newcastle should have bitten our hand off to take the money for Isak for a couple of reasons. If he picks up an injury in the next, let's say, first 3 months of the season, if he picks up an injury that keeps him out for a while, and Newcastle haven't been able to bring in the calibre of backup or player alongside them that they would have wanted, I think very quickly they'll start revisiting the idea of, shit, should we have sold them? And I do think they should have. I totally get it from Newcastle fans' perspective. Of course they don't want their best players to go. But I think it would have been for the greater good if they sold them. It would have given them the ability to build out the squad more. Chancellor Mohada, thank you. 17 months with us as a member. That is incredible. Thank you. Hey Craig, can't wait for Lucho to leave. His fanboys are out there shitting on our club. Just want him gone now. We don't need plastic fans like City. It's definitely one of the more frustrating things for me as well to see our club getting belittled by people. Like it happened with Mane when he was leaving. I remember hearing how much more appreciated he was going to be in Bayern Munich. Well, that didn't work out too well there, did it? And I haven't seen too much of the Diaz fanboy stuff, in all honesty, because I'm not really on social media. But, you know, it's been really clear to me that he wants out. And I think it's going to happen. It's been tough to try to sit back and hear Liverpool say he's not for sale, whilst allowing him to speak to Bayern, whilst allowing him to speak to Barca, allowing him to speak with Al Nassr. We're not going to allow that to happen, or at least not say anything publicly about it unless there's a number. So it's always felt to me like there was a number, and look, I just don't want players that don't want to be here. And the rumours coming out today about the type of money that Diaz is going to be earning, well, it's very significant. It's pretty damn significant. There's talk that Luis Diaz will be on €280,000 per week when he goes to Bayern Munich. Or should say, if he goes to Bayern Munich. So what's that? About £220,000? And I would dare say to you folks, Luis Diaz is not worth £220,000 a week. I don't see it. So if you can get that money and he wants to move, no problem, as long as Liverpool have the time to bring in a replacement. But, I don't think it'll come as a shock to Liverpool that Diaz is angling for a move, because Liverpool don't want to renew his deal on huge money and he wants more money. And that's okay. Like I said, at least he's not hiding it. He's out there trying to make a deal happen this summer. And if Liverpool can do it, so what? Let's move on. Your top 5 Liverpool players of all time in order. I never do all time. I only ever do the ones that I've seen play, because I don't think it's fair for me to talk about the likes of Dalglish or Emlyn Hughes. So in my lifetime, Gerrard, Salah, Virgil, Suarez, Alisson. Probably that order. But again, I'd probably have to sit here and think about it. I'd probably pick holes in my own one, because I'm leaving out Alonso. I'm leaving out Big Sammy. It's difficult, but yeah, probably that. Throw Firmino into the mix as well. I always find it difficult because you're going to leave out 2 or 3 from anybody's best collection. So the ones that I think I would say I'm really comfortable with are obviously Salah, Gerrard, Virgil. Yeah, probably. It's difficult. There's been so many, and so many that have helped transform us to where we are. So, like, Bobby Firmino's importance can't be understated. Alisson Becker and Virgil, same thing. Mohamed Salah's sheer goals. Steven Gerrard carrying the team on. Sami Hyypiä providing us, a great level of service for very small money at the time. It's really difficult. I've loved Robbie Fowler as well. Yeah, I can't. I just can't do these things, because I just think it's impossible. And I think each one of them needs context as to what players were around them when they were here and stuff like that as well. And I didn't get to see King Kenny, so, I can't really give you any take on him as a player. Blah said, we don't need Gordon, we need a centre-back. So don't be concerning yourself with the centre-back situation. We're going to get a centre-back. You can be relaxed about that one. Happy with EKITIKE and RODRYGO, but we need Gay, and I'd also take Haddo as well, even considering him. So the reason that we're pushing ahead with EKITIKE at the minute is because that's a bit more time sensitive. And Liverpool are probably still trying to figure out whether Canade wants to leave or whether there's a way to get him to renew his new deal or renew terms with the club and stay. That's probably what's put the slight pause on the centre-back. But I promise you, you've nothing to worry about. Liverpool know the situation we're in. Even, you know, I was reading through a few different papers and that today. There's some conversation that kind of backs up what you've said there as well, Blah, that Liverpool, you know, need to acknowledge the elephant in the room at centre-back. And we will. We will. I just think these are a little bit more time-sensitive. Detroit, Copite, how are we, my friend? I hope life's good over in America for you. I get MUFC are a big historical club and a name brand, but a name brand means nothing if the product is crap. Don't understand how they sign okay players. Look, you've acknowledged that they're a historical club and there's always going to be pulling power. You know, to say I played for Manchester United or I played for Liverpool, it's always going to carry weight and it's always going to put you in a special bracket. They've overpaid in wages and they've wasted a lot of money on transfers over the last 10 years. So the one thing that I always laugh at is, you know, United fans have every right to moan about the Glazers because they've been an absolute shit show. But what they can't say is they haven't been backing their managers, because they have. It's just been poor decision making from the recruitment team that has led them to this position. So yeah, like, this is the first summer that we've really splashed the cash net spend wise so far with FSG. And I looked on, I was going to say with envy, but it wasn't really with envy because some of the business was stupid. But I certainly would have loved Kloppo to have had access to some of the money that United have had over the years for transfers. But, you know, I think I just speak for all of us right now when I say it's pretty good being a Liverpool fan at this moment. Right. We have had over 2,500 votes and we asked, do we need to sign a defensive midfielder in the US window? 50% say no, 33% say yes, and 17% say unsure. And thank you to everyone that took part in that one. Jamie Hall said, hi Craig, do you think that EKITIKE may be stalling and this sudden Saudi so-called bid for Isak are related? I'm sceptical about the timing and think maybe it still happens. So, I don't think there's any stalling on our side with EKITIKE. I also don't think we're going to pull out of any deal for Hugo EKITIKE, regardless of what happens with Isak. I'll be a liar though, Jamie, if I said to you, mate, that I wasn't shocked to see DiMarzio's link to Al Hilal, you know, who are 75%, I believe, owned by the Saudi PIF. Yeah, I don't really know where. I don't know the thought process there. I can't figure it out what the play is. You know, yes, they'd be able to give Newcastle a load of money, but I just refuse to acknowledge that Alexander Isak at 25 wants to go and play in the Saudi Pro League. Just doesn't strike me. And obviously he's respectful to Newcastle, and I never really expect him to kick up a fuss to get out of there because he's been treated well and the Geordie fans love him, but I don't see a world where he goes to the Saudi Pro League. You know, he's been speaking about ambition and Champions Leagues, and yeah, I just can't see it. I can't see him going there. Even if it's for an astronomical amount of money, just feels very unlikely. What do you guys think, though? Do you think there's any chance Newcastle sell him anywhere? Whether it's us, whether it's Al Hilal, or I don't know. What I feel safe saying, Jamie, is even if we sign Hugo EKITIKE, I feel like if any opportunity presents itself for Isak, we'll still be there. Could Al Hilal buy Isak, then loan him back? I mean, I don't know. Technically, I guess, yes, they could do it, but would it be challenged? Would people ask about the legitimacy of it or the reasoning behind it? I just struggle to see how they get away with it. It would be a very clear way to look like they're circumventing PSR. But, you know, we've also seen Chelsea sell themselves hotels, so I don't know what to think of with the rules anymore. You know, I don't. But I just don't see a world where if it was a genuine bona fide interest that he'd want to go to Al Hilal. I just don't see it. Chada said, "How's it going, Craig? What do you think about Man City's business so far? Do you think that these Cherky is better than Vert's claims need to be rubbished?" Of course, look. No, I don't need to be respectful for Man City. Fuck Man City, so no respect. I'd be respectful to the United fans, the Geordie fans, but no. Look, anybody that's trying to convince themselves that Ryan Cherky is in anywhere near in the same league as Florian Wirtz, ask themselves this question. Why didn't Liverpool move for him? Because he wanted Liverpool. Make no mistake about it. And Manchester City wanted Wirtz, but he came to us. So the comparisons are laughable. If Liverpool really wanted Ryan Cherky, he'd be wearing a Liverpool jersey. But ultimately, he's a talent, but not a proven talent. So these comparisons to me are copium of the highest order from a fan base that I have fuck all respect for, to be honest with you. It's just madness. It's just silliness. It just is. You know, they wanted Wirtz, they tried from, didn't get him, and now they're trying to just make themselves feel better. Yeah, Marmoush was a really good signing. I've said that time and time again. But nah, that's just nonsense. It's just nonsense. Like, it just is. You know, I can't understand a rational person thinking that he's better. You might think, value-wise, you got a good player for a lower price. Fair enough. But to try and say he's on the same level as Wirtz is just fucking embarrassing. I don't know what else to say. Only one of those two was a chance to win a Ballon d'Or. And also the makey-uppy numbers that some opposition fans are trying to say. I've seen people try to tell me we paid £150 million for Wirtz. It's 116 with the add-ons reached. But let them. Like I keep saying, let them. Let them talk. Let them try to convince themselves. And then what will happen is they won't win. It won't be their fault. Everything will be against them. And yeah, fuck them. Honestly, all of them. Them and their 115 charges. Don't care. No time for them. Patrick Berger. He was a player. He was. A good looking fella as well. Craig, did you see Rio, Leone, Danz, Doak and Bajcetic getting first team minutes this season? Doak's getting sold. Like I've been saying all summer. I would be astonished if Ben Doak is a Liverpool player by the end of the window. I think between the interest from Crystal Palace and Forest, Liverpool will get the fee they're asking for. Everton were also interested. Don't know if that interest is still there. Leone, that's one I really don't know the answer for. Will get a chance in pre-season, but may have a loan. Rio will be kept around, and I think we'll get some chances this year. What were the other names on your list? Bajcetic, again, it will depend on how pre-season goes, I think. If he can get back playing and impress Arna, then there's a chance that maybe he's the Ryan Gravenberch understudy. Where are we at? This one. Love your updates. Watching from Papillon, Nebraska, USA. Exciting summer for all of us Liverpool fans. Keep doing what you do. Thank you, my friend. Was looking at some of the leaked images today of the Liverpool shirts. The away one's very interesting, actually. I don't know if you guys have seen it or not, but it's a little bit different from some of the white versions of the shirt that have been doing the rounds. It looks a little bit nicer, the leaked Adidas images today, but yeah, great summer ahead, and thank you for your kind words. Really appreciate it. Doak's potential is so high, price tag has to reflect that. I'd say 25 mil. I think that's about right, Liam. I think you're not too far off there. 25 million. And for what it's worth, I would have liked them to have got more chances at Liverpool. I really would. I think Ben Doak has a lot of talent. But like I told you guys many times, I'd always heard that there wasn't really a thought process that he was going to stay. It was, yeah, loan him, get minutes, and this summer, you know, if 25 million gets put down on the table, I think yeah, he'll probably move. Tanya said, Craig, who's your preference backup striker if EKITIKE is number one? I don't think we need a backup striker because we'll get EKITIKE. I would have been happy with EKITIKE. I would have understood Šeško. But honestly, there won't be a backup option because EKITIKE will get done. It's moving quickly, but the agreement with the player seems to be there. It's just going to take a little bit longer for us to figure out what's going on with the price. Patrick said Nunes. Yeah, he'll be leaving. Again, I know people sometimes don't like what I say, but Darwin Nunes is leaving the football club, like I said all summer, and that's not going to change. He's going to leave, and his first club, I think, that puts the 55 million down on the table will get Liverpool's interest. Actually, AC Milan's name has been bandied around a little bit with Darwin, although we know Napoli have moved on to other targets. But there's what Romano described as serious opportunities. And one thing that did come today, actually, that might give us a little bit of clarity on the Darwin situation. Let me just get this. Is it this one? So, yeah, Graham Bailey reported that Darwin Nunes has indicated he is willing to move to the Saudi Pro League this summer, which is set to accelerate their interest in him. Nunes had wanted to join Napoli, but Liverpool turned down their approach and they backed away. So we didn't know if Darwin was going to be open to the possibility of joining the Saudi Pro League, and it seems as if he will. Maybe he looks at it as a short-term thing. Maybe he thinks if he goes over there, does a season or two, maybe he can fire a few goals in and catch the attention of another big European club and get a move back. Max says Darwin is staying. I'm telling you, 100%, he isn't staying. And cry arson and moaning and shouting at me and being a dickhead isn't going to change that. Darwin is going. You either take that on board or you get upset when he leaves. But he's going. And it's as simple as that. And it's the right decision as well, because he's not good enough. Sam said Newcastle embarrassed themselves thinking we would desperately overpay for Isak. Now they're left feeling bullied. Richard Hughes don't mess around. It's been massively exaggerated for me, Sam, the situation. Like, I think Mark McAdam on Sky probably got it about right. There's a lot of respect there between Eddie Howe and Richard Hughes, former teammates. And like I said, it was a simple inquiry, and we kind of let it be known what we were willing to go to. And Newcastle, who were perfectly within their rights to say no, said no. And Liverpool moved on. Now, it was unfortunate for Newcastle that Liverpool's next target was going to be the one that they were trying to bring in, but, that's football. It's a competitive business, and just like Newcastle were perfectly within their rights to say no for Isak, we were perfectly within our rights to move on to Hugo Ekitike. So, yeah, it is what it is. I still, all bias aside, feel Newcastle should have taken the money because he's not worth £130 million. He's not. We were overpaying, but we were willing to. And I think we all believed and understood that we were overpaying. If you ask me for a genuine price tag on Alexander Isak, 90 to 100 million max, because you can't just ignore the concerns around injury. You can't just ignore the very limited top-level Champions League action he's had. So that has to be reflected. And I think 90 to 100 million was about right. But understood that we had to probably try something silly or, yeah. Mac, you're not going to bait me, mate. You're just another little fucking gimp. Just fuck off. Honestly. Go and have a wank over Darwin and whatever else you fucking saddos do, mate. Honestly, I can't be arsed. Which I'm in too good of a mood for bait like that, mate. But you can just cry yourself to sleep in your little Darwin pyjamas when your little Darwin panini book stuck together from all your little... But that's okay. I'll be right, like I always am. And you can come back on and slag me off and call me a clown and do what you want. And I'll just sit here getting the millions of views, spouting facts. Simple as that, mate. But like I said, I'm in a good mood today, so I'm not going to bite on any of the bait. Viz Jack said, I think we keep Isak and he signs a new contract with the number 9 shirt. you buy Gordon and we buy Núñez in return. Not like, you probably know better than me what the chances are of Isak signing a new deal at Newcastle, mate. I don't know. If I'm him, I'm probably hanging off on that new deal to see how Newcastle season progresses. You know, because if this was, let's say he signs a new deal and this ends up being a flash in the pan season for Newcastle and they don't get back in the Champions League, I think he'll then look back at that and think, So I'm not certain you'll get him to sign that new deal just yet. But look, the Gordon and Núñez thing could very well happen at some point. You know, you'd know better than me about your interest in Darwin or not, but I know that the interest in Gordon is it's sincere from us, but I have no idea where Newcastle stance are or would be with it. The rat was an error, not an insult. No, I know, mate. It's all good, all good. I'm a bit worried we're not prioritising the centre-back. We are. Like, even in the paper whose name I don't want to mention today, they did a piece about the one thing Richard Hughes can't forget about, which is exactly that, the centre-back situation. Again, I don't know that if for a fact, but my best guess is that we're just waiting to see if Canade can be convinced to sign the new deal. Because if Canade can sign a new deal or will sign the new deal, I think then we pivot, and I wouldn't expect us to look at Mark Gay. I would expect us to look at Jarell Haddo or somebody younger. So that, to me, is my best guess at why we haven't signed the centre-back yet. The club must feel like there's a chance to renew Canade. If not, I think we'd have moved for Mark Gay at this point. Anthony Gordon or a good centre-back? Your opinion, please. Both. Look, if you ask me how I think the rest of this window plays out, I think we sign 2 more forwards, 1 centre-back minimum, 2 if Canade leaves. And after that, I'm not expecting much more, to be honest with you. If Chiesa is staying, 2 forwards are more than enough. If Young Rio's going to get minutes as well. We will lose Darwin. We will probably lose Diaz. And obviously Diogo for a very different reason. So yeah, I think 2 forwards and we're good to go. But I expect 1 striker and 1 versatile player. So Rodrigo to me makes more sense than Anthony Gordon because he gives us ability to play across the front line. And I don't think Anthony Gordon does that. But Anthony Gordon gives us other things like pace, homegrown. So I'm calm about either. You know, like I said, I trust the club's thought process. You know, if you want my preference, Rodrigo. But I'll understand either. Neville, how are we, sir? Did you see the sell and buyback deal on Isak for 300 million with a 500k salary? The lease back would be at 100k. Al Hilal in the middle, both own Newcastle. So we kind of discussed it a little bit earlier, Neville, and I don't know if they'll be able to do that and get around the rules. Like, it would look very sus if them coming in and spending a load of dough to buy Isak and then just hand them back over. Like, it's clearly done to circumvent the rules, and I can't imagine it wouldn't be challenged. But I don't know how it goes after that, mate. Gordon a downgrade on Diaz. Look, I get it. I'm not going to sit here and laugh at you or argue with you about it. Obviously, the club and Arna see something there that they think they can improve on. Again, I get it. I know there's a lot of people that aren't convinced by the idea of Anthony Gordon. I'm not trying to sell you the prospect of it. I can only tell you what I know to be the case, though. Where are we at? Lauro, how are we, sir? How are we, mate? Still excited about Hugo? I don't know whether I should be excited or not, to be honest with you, because I don't know all that much about Hugo EKITIKE. I do feel if the 85 million pound price is paid, I feel we've overpaid. But then again, I fear we're always going to have to overpay for a striker this summer because the market's so limited in the options available. But yeah, I'm excited that we're progressing. I am. I'm excited it brings us one step closer to getting rid of Darwin, which I can't wait for. And the Diaz one, I'm on the fence about the Diaz one because I like Lucho. But I can understand if the club feel that the amount of money they may get could future-proof us for the future, next 3, 4, 5, 6 years with a younger player brought in. But I like Lucho, and I wouldn't have minded him staying one bit. You know, I've said this so many times, the options we have on the left side of attack to me are really good. We spent 85 million on a striker before and didn't end well. Yeah, cool story, but we didn't. We spent 71 million pound on a striker that didn't end well. You know, let's not do the opposition fans' work for them here. The fee was about 71 million in the end that we paid, to the best of my understanding. Thank you, David. Lovely to see you, bro. Lovely to see you. Thank you for dropping in. Appreciate you. Duran loan back to Fenerbahce. Right, I don't understand the point you're trying to make. Duran wasn't bought and then immediately loaned back. Duran was bought, didn't settle, and wanted out. And the reason I think he probably isn't back in the Prem is because of the tax implications. But even at Fenerbahce, I reported on this yesterday, he's fallen out already. He showed up late or didn't show up for the start of pre-season, so that's not going swimmingly well at the minute. Machiavelli Francis said, I bet y'all Rail will dump Trent and he'll go to Man U next transfer window for about £2. Look, I've always felt he's not going to succeed at Madrid. Because I don't think the fans want him first and foremost. And you will see this season the Carvajal shouts as soon as he's back, fit and ready, and Trent makes a mistake. But, you know, he made his bed. He's not a Liverpool player anymore, and we'll see what happens. Wayne said, loving the red top, Craig. Thank you, mate. Wonder what second striker we bring in. Will give Dan's a chance, or do you think we'll go for a cheap striker who'll rotate? I'm not convinced we sign a second striker at all. I think we bring in another player. So how do I say this? I agree that it would be lovely to bring in 2 strikers, but I don't think we will. I think we'll bring in one. We'll replace Diaz if he leaves. And then maybe if Chiesa... Like, I think a lot of this might hinge on Chiesa and whether he's really an option for this season. Because if he's going to be utilised, okay, that's an extra body. Young Rio, that's an extra body. So yeah, let's see. I'll be happy if we bring in EKITIKE, the left-sided player who the club want, and a centre-back or 2 if we sell Karate. Anything after that, and I think it'll be a pleasant surprise. What do you guys think? Let me ask the question to the chat. So, let me just type this out. Out and out strikers. Right, so I'm going to ask, do you think we sign 2 out-and-out strikers? Yes, no, or 1 striker and a utility is probably the better word. Right, so 1 striker and a utility attacker, yes or no? They're the options, I think. Because, yeah, a few people today have been talking about the idea of 2 strikers. I don't know. I've not seen much reporting to suggest that we're going to look to bring in 2. Although imagine if we did end up in some mad warped world with both Isak and EKITIKE. The striker combo that Newcastle were trying to put in the window. Imagine there's some warped world where we somehow end up with those 2. Liverpool building a Galacticos. It's brilliant, Matteo. It's brilliant, mate. We can't certainly sit here anymore and say we haven't been given money to spend in the window, But with that comes an expectation as well. The pressure certainly ramps up on us. Last year we came in, I don't want to say as underdogs, but certainly nobody. Nobody, not even the most optimistic of us Liverpool fans, thought we were going to win the league. But this season we're coming in with an expectation, and I think that's going to bring its own pressures. But I think they'll be able to handle it. Hand on heart, what's your predicted main 11? I don't have one, because I think different teams will see us use different personnel. Different times of the season will see us use different personnel. I'll have a stab at it for you. I'll have a go with it. Allison, Frimpong. I have a sneaking feeling we're going to get Canade to stay. I've nothing to base that off. It's just something in my mind over the last 48 hours has made me feel like there's hope there. So I'm going to say Canade, Virgil, Kirkes. Obviously, Gravenberch's not there for the first game, but Gravenberch, McAllister, Wirtz, Salah, EKITIKE. I think we'll start with Gakpo, but I feel Anthony Gordon might be the other option on the left. Brawl Chronicle said, I'm at the hospital right now. My foot is swelling a lot. I'm sorry, dude. I hope the swelling goes down, and I hope whatever the cause of it is sorted out as well. Sending you love. Could be the best window in decades, said Paul Beer. Mate, it's certainly shaping up to be the best transfer window for Liverpool in my adult lifetime. Ash, how are we, Ash? Ash Hin said, hey, Craig, Hugo didn't move earlier in the window, seemingly due to waiting for Liverpool. Do you think Hatter might be similarly waiting for us as well? I'd hope so, but I don't know. I know Virgil's a massive fan of Jarell Haddo. But if you've looked at the prices that are starting to be mentioned, it's gone from maybe 40 million a month or two ago. Now there's talk of 55, 60 million. So I don't know how that one pans out. But it's cool that EKITIKE waited, because it does feel like you're right, and he waited there for Liverpool to come in. Right, my friends, if you haven't hit that subscribe button for me, please do. As you can see, we're closing in now towards 334,000 subscribers. I cannot believe the way we're growing, so thank you all so much for that one. Also, if you haven't hit that like button yet, you know what to do. Adam, is Maka okay? I haven't seen him in training videos. He was there today. He's back today, Adam, so all good in that regard. They were doing a little bit of boxing training and that as well today. But yeah, Alexis McAllister was back in the training pictures today. Because there was a great post from, I don't know if it was Anfield Sector or anything Liverpool, but one of them said, just the greatest midfielder in the world, you know, back for training. So yeah, he's definitely there. Right, what's this one? Oh yeah, we've already gone through that one yesterday. Did you see the whooping that Leverkusen were getting by Flamenco under 20s? It was 4-0, I think, last I checked. So Ten Lasso's living up to his reputation there. Sarah Halliday said, 85 will end up being good business. Watch. Yeah, I hope so. You know, we all want whoever the striker is, and it certainly looks like it'll be Hugo EKITIKE. We all want him to do well. And I very much trust the club's thought process. Mark, so we need to look at our scouting. We pay too much for Darwin and are behaving like Chelsea. We need to look for the next Mane rather than stupid money for EKITIKE. So I think the reason we signed Darwin was because of who was running things from the recruitment side at that point. And I really, really, really don't think that if Michael Edwards was making the decisions then, that Liverpool would have signed Darwin Núñez. It felt like a very emotional signing from Kloppo, based off one good season, and two, him playing well against us. And I just don't feel like we would have done that. But our scouting is really good. But we're at a point now where we're bringing in the finished product, or as close to the finished product as we can, rather than the days where we're taking punts on players. So we've got a brilliant scouting department. I think we're doing them a disservice by saying we need to work on our scouting. They're really, really good, and it stretches far and wide, and it's a huge database with great people running it. But as Arna said, it's difficult to bring players into this team because it's difficult to improve the squad that we have. And that's what they're trying to do now. Is Maka up there with Vitinha and Pedri? For me, Maka is right up there with the best midfielders in the world. You know, we got him for about £38 million, I think. And I swear he's a £100 million midfielder. If I'm to believe that Rice, Caicedo, Enzo are all 100 million plus midfielders, because they are, then so is Alexis McAllister. He's brilliant, and I love that he's in our team. Newcastle embarrassed themselves, thinking we would desperately overpay. I already read this one out, Sam. You said I missed it. I didn't. I read it out earlier on. Now they're left feeling bullied. Yeah, no, I definitely read that out, mate. 100%. I think it was this one you're probably talking about. So let me go back to this one. Sorry, Sam. Apart from our planned targets, we must not forget to replace Diogo with a top signing. We must pay what it takes to replace a player of his calibre. Yeah, it's so difficult to speak about, Sam, isn't it? Because it's still so raw for all of us, and I'm sure for the club as well. I don't know if there might be a psychological barrier there, perhaps stopping us from looking at it. Or maybe I don't know if they think a versatile player is what's required. Because the noises coming out was that Arna wants some players that can play right across the front three. And Jayden Danns is a huge prospect, but yeah, I just don't know what to say about the Diogo situation or to potentially replace him, because I'm not ready to talk about it, if I'm being honest with you. Whenever I think I'm fully getting past it, something just comes up and just makes you reflect and think, God, it's he's actually gone. Like, he's really gone. Hobbit Hoskin, how are we, Shane? Said Trafford to City would be hilarious. Poor Newcastle. I seen that earlier on and I just thought, wow. Yeah, I just thought, wow. Newcastle can't catch a break here, can they? But it is what it is, you know. Like I said, it's ruthless, the transfer market, and Newcastle are finding that out this summer. Right, so let's talk about Lucho for a minute. So this here from Alto Belly, and you can find it on the Anfield Agenda X account. Bayern Munich have agreed terms with Luis Diaz, who's set to receive a 4-year contract to the summer of 2029 and earn an estimated €14 million per year, which again shows you why Liverpool weren't willing to renegotiate. Because if that's the type of numbers that Luis Diaz is able to garner elsewhere, I don't think Liverpool were going to cave in and give Luis Diaz what would be about £220,000 to £230,000 per week. It's a lot of money. And if you look at what Liverpool would pay to bring in another forward, and even the wages on top of that, like, he's asking for more money there than we're paying Florian Wirtz, who we just paid £116 million for. And with all due respect to Luis Diaz, he doesn't have the same impact on the squad that a Virgil or a Mo or an Alisson has. So I don't think he should be in that level of wage bracket. I think somewhere between 120 and 160 a week feels about fair for Diaz. Someone said Liverpool have already met with Rodrigo in New York. That'd be cool. Yeah, I'd love if they did. That would be amazing. Look, I love Rodrigo. For all the talk of me about Anthony Gordon, I'd love Rodrigo. If there was an option between the two of them, make no mistake, I would be down on the side of Rodrigo without any hesitation. It's one of those I'm almost afraid to believe just yet. Because there's so many things that make me feel, dealing with Madrid for a start is one thing that makes me think, will we do that? But it may come down to the Canade situation. And that's the next thing I'm going to ask you, because I've seen Andy in the chat there saying, no way, Canade is staying. I don't know. I'm unsure what's happening with Ibu, so I'm going to ask that as the next poll question, if that's okay. Right, 104 subscribers to go to get to the next target. So if you can't, hit that subscribe button. Eddie said, when do you think the deal for Hugo gets done? Look, he has a friendly tomorrow, I think, with Frankfurt, if I'm not mistaken. And then they head off to the States, from what I read, on their preseason tour. So I think if you're Liverpool, you'd love to get it done before either he heads off or before we head off to Hong Kong to play AC Milan, and then to Japan to play Yokohama Marinos. So yeah, ideally before Tuesday, probably. But again, I don't know what Eintracht Frankfurt are like to deal with, because yeah, I don't have much knowledge of their transfer dealings with regards to sales. Nor do I know the level at which Liverpool are talking at. We know it was a little bit above the offer that Newcastle made, but will it get to the £85 million maybe that Frankfurt want? And what happens if they can't find a breakthrough there? Like, do Liverpool just pay what it takes, or do Liverpool have a number that they don't want to go past? Zeno said, other than Gordon and Gay, what other homegrown players would you like in a Liverpool shirt? Nathan Collins, I think, counts as homegrown if I'm not mistaken. So him. We brought in Frimpong, he's homegrown. The goalkeeper, Woodman, he's homegrown. Don't really think there's many more that I can think of off the top of my head that I'd want in. Especially in the centre-back market. I can't really think of more homegrown centre-backs that I'd be excited or open to a signing. Loads of people talk about Tyler Dibbling, and at least you're talking about a much more sensible asking price now, rather than the 100 million that was being quoted by Southampton at one point. But look, I just don't know. Like, I'm at a point now where I don't really have much inside information with what we're doing now. I knew what was happening with Wirtz, with Frimpong, Kirkes. I can tell you about the interest in Anthony Gordon, but the centre-back situation, I'm as intrigued as everybody else. Mark Gay seems the common sense safe bet if you lose Canade. But if you keep Canade, then I expect us to make the move for Joel Haddo. Is Gay homegrown? Yes, he is, mate. He is. Adam said, is there any interest in Costas? Seems to have gone quiet. Also, I'm really worried Newcastle are going to come in and bully us, trying to disrupt Darwin. Yeah, how dare they? How bloody dare they? Haven't really read anything on Costas. Yeah, I'm sure there will be interest, but I don't know of one club that are waiting for Liverpool to say yes or no. Like, Leeds were a club that were mentioned a while back, but I don't know if that interest is still there. I don't know if Andy Robertson has told Liverpool what his plans are yet or not. So yeah, look, they're going to be sales. We're going to sell a left back. We're going to sell probably Doak. We're going to sell Elliott. We're going to sell Morton. We're going to sell probably Diaz, Darwin. So lots to get done, but we've always known it was going to be a busy summer. Morgan Rogers is a good shout, Paul. Morgan Rogers is a good shout. Who was it I seen that was Chelsea? I believe Chelsea had made Morgan Rogers a target in the last 24, 48 hours, if I'm not mistaken. Like, if I'm wrong on that, I apologise, but I'm almost certain I'd seen some link with them and Morgan Rogers. Are we going to find time for Szoboszlai that will make him happy? Yes, I think so. Sometimes maybe we give Maka a breather and we go with Szoboszlai and Wirtz ahead of Gravenberch. Sometimes maybe Szoboszlai moves across to the right-hand side. But I think the amount of games that we have, yeah, he'll get enough game time. And that's why Elliott will move on. Right, where are we at with this one? Right, we're nearly up. We're past 1,500 votes. So we asked, do you think we sign 2 out-and-out strikers? Yes, no, or 1 striker and a utility attacker? This one. Skyro said, I'm a Liverpool fan in a Geordie friend group, and the Isak thing has caused a genuine rift. They care more than I did about Trent. It's crazy. So I'd love to know what the Geordies make of the Al Halal stuff anyway. Obviously they did want to sell Isak to us, that's understandable, but this belief that he would stay loyal forever, I think, is misplaced as well, because Newcastle are going to have to meet his ambition over the next season, and that's why I was a bit non-committal on thinking about that new deal for him. I think he's going to want to see how Newcastle shape up this season, and maybe have a look at the rest of the business they do this window. Will I watch the game against Milan? Yep, I will. It'll be the one against Yokohama Marinos that I won't be covering. That'll be the only preseason game I'm not covering. But the AC Milan game, yeah, we'll be doing a watch along for that one. Right. Any chance Stevenson becomes the fourth choice centre back this year? Well, he's not even a centre back by trade. He's a defensive midfielder. But like you, I was quite impressed. But no, I don't think there's a chance for him becoming. I just think that we needed bodies for the first preseason friendly, and he did very well, by the way. I was very impressed with the way he stepped across to cover Conor Bradley when Conor Bradley stepped up, and certainly Stevenson was one of the players that really did catch my eye in that preseason game against Preston. But I don't think so. I think Nallo will be the fifth option at centre back this summer, or this season, when we bring in another one. Thomas Fisher said, are you worried we might make too many changes? No, not really. Look, the forward line's an interesting one, all right, but I'm relaxed about the centre-back role, because I think Mark Gay coming in, whether you argue whether he's an upgrade or not, I think he's certainly more than good enough to make me feel like alongside Virgil we'd have nothing to worry about there, with Joe Gomez as an option as well. The forward line is very, very interesting, though, because there's more uncertainty around that, I think, than any other area at the minute. The only two that we can all sit here and say have no chance of moving anywhere are Gakpo and Mo. After that, I think most of the other players' futures are up in the air. Some of them nailed on, like Darwin to leave. What position is the most important to bring in to preseason games to adapt? I'd say centre back personally, because if a forward makes a mistake or doesn't make a run or gets his timing wrong, it's not going to come back to haunt you in the same way a defender. So if you haven't got your defensive line right, and maybe a centre back sits a little bit too deep, so I would say centre back, because you have to drill the shit out of them to make sure that they have that defensive line right. So for me, I would want the centre back in as early as possible. Craig, would you take Gay even if Ibu extends? Would I take him? Yes. But I just don't think he'd be able to convince Mark Gay that he was going to get enough game time. Mark Gay wants the guarantee of starting, because it's an international season with the World Cup coming up. So yeah, he's going to want that guarantee, and I think you could give it to him if Canade moved on. But if he stayed, I don't know. I think it's a harder thing to convince him of. Do you think Liverpool go for Ederson from Atalanta? No, Jake, but I'd love them to. Last summer I was screaming for Liverpool to go and sign Ederson from Atalanta, but I kept hearing back that he wasn't the right profile of player for the way we were looking to play. But I really like him. I think he's a good player. Right, let's end this poll, and I want to ask you about Canade then. So we asked, do we sign two out-and-out strikers? 26% said yes, 30% said no, and 44% said that they were happy for us to go one striker and one utility striker. And for what it's worth, I think you voted for the right answer, because I think that's what's most likely going to happen. Xavi Simons, I just don't see the value there, David. And from what I've read about Xavi Simons, there is baggage there. Like, there's a lot of stuff that he doesn't integrate well with the Leipzig squad, that he doesn't show up to some events and stuff. So yeah, but look, again, Arne would know. He's a Dutch player, and Arne would know more about him than I would. Right, so So here's what I'd like to know. Does Canade sign the new deal? How are you feeling about that? Yes or no? Because I've, maybe through delusion, started to convince myself that there's a chance. Now, I jumped in, I seen Andy in the chat earlier on saying, no hope, he's going. Totally understand that as well. This is more just me being intrigued by how you're thinking. But you can't trust Canade no more, can guarantee Gay playing time. Mate, I'm not disagreeing. I would take Canade and Mark Gay, both of them at the club. And you're right, there are moments that Canade certainly has errors in him and lapses of judgment. But I'm just going off what I'm reading from, what Mark Gay wants at his next club. And it is to make sure that he's in the England manager's thought processes and that he's getting enough game time. Sell or swap him for Rodrigo, said Crispy Sesh. Look, if Canade wants to sign a new deal and the club are happy with the numbers involved in it, I think why change? If Ibu's happy to stay and the club can get him to agreement that everyone's happy with, brilliant. Stay. But for me, I don't want another year of running down the deal like we've seen with Trent, where we have to read all the stories about Madrid week after week. Naturalist said, Gay is a leader and calm and more stable. Canade's not a leader. When VVD leaves, we need a leader. See, I would agree with you on that, for what it's worth. I would. I don't ever see Ibrahima Canade as leading our defence. I don't. I agree with you on that. And I do also agree that Mark Gay feels more of a natural leader than Canade. Double D22 said, for me, the Darwin situation was an experiment that failed. He put 110% effort in every game, and I appreciate that. He just didn't score and missed many sitters. Not mad, him, but it's time to change. I think that's a pretty fair reflection of what happened. I can understand why we took the punt on Darwin. Again, I think we'll all say he has the tools to succeed. Like yourself, there's not many times I would say he down tools, if any. But he just ultimately, for whatever reason, wasn't able to find the level of consistency that you would have hoped for with the talent that he has. And unfortunately, it's the right time to just part ways. Take Bruno Fernandes to get Man United relegated. I couldn't watch Bruno Fernandes in a Liverpool shirt. Not because he's not a good player. He clearly is a good player, but his moaning just does my head in. Gary and Jane Francis said, Canade will end up at Real, Rodrigo will move to us, and Gay will replace Canade. I'd take that right now, mate, if that was on offer. If there's a piece of paper in front of me that I can sign here that makes that deal that you've spoken about potentially done, yeah, sign me up. Again, like I've said, I think over the course of a season, Mark Gay will be more consistent than Canade, so I'd be happy enough with that. Big fan of Rodrigo, would love him at the club, and we're going to need somebody in that position. So yeah, I wouldn't disagree at all, my friend. Craig, who you got tomorrow? Dubois, Usyk. It's surely got to be Usyk again. There's very rarely rematches go a different way. Yeah, I just look. You have to give Dubois the respect of knowing that he absolutely walked through AJ and stone cold knocked him unconscious. It was very impressive, but I don't see Usyk making the mistakes that AJ made, and unless Usyk's aged, I just can't see anything other than Usyk winning, and I'm going to go as far as to say I think he stops him. Canade is an enforcer, one that every top team needs. Is he? I respectfully disagree. Canade is reckless, is what I would say. I don't see the enforcer part at all. I see somebody who gets too touch tight, gives away needless free kicks, relies on pushing people too much with his hand. Yep, don't see the enforcer part, mate. I don't. Good defender, and I like him, like I said, but no, don't feel enforcer when I look at Canada, not at all. Cam Wiki said, I can't wait until Cunha and Fernandez fight on the pitch and United finish 18th and we win 21. Oshin said, Anfield Edition say Al Nassr willing to pay, I think he meant to say 100 million for Diaz. So what I read the other day was that Ronaldo has intervened with Al Nassr and asked them to sign Diaz. But I have no idea what way Diaz's head is at. You know, I know he's spoken with Vincent Kompany, and 280 grand a week is a pretty significant, in euros, wage as well. But we all know the wages on offer in Saudi will blow anything out of the water. And you've got the tax-free element on top of that as well. So I want Liverpool to get the best deal they can for any player that leaves the club, whether that's Luis Diaz or anybody else. So the more money, the better. Matip was the most underrated centre-back. I don't think he was. I think people... And I don't say that because I'm not saying he's good. He's really good. But I don't think he was underrated. I think we all knew what Matip was. The problem was, of course, injuries and stuff, but really, really, really good, solid centre-back. Triller X said, Haddo is quite a bit expensive. 60 million was reported. Yeah, 60 million feels ridiculous for an 18-year-old. Yeah, it feels ridiculous. Well, maybe he's 19 now, but it feels ridiculous. It just does. Saying that though, we're just about to pay maybe more than that, 75 or 80 million pound for somebody who's just turned 23. Do you think the Rodrygo move is off if Vini decides to leave Real Madrid and Saudi maybe Mbappe goes left wing, Gonzalo striker? I'm thinking what you said, the second part. I was saying this to somebody yesterday. I can see a world where Mbappe shifts to the left and that young lad, Gonzalo, whatever his name is, goes striker. I think it might come down to how Rodrygo perceives he's been treated at Madrid. So obviously the thing you're talking about there with Vinicius Jr., those numbers are insane. Like $1 billion in wages over 5 years is insane. It's like £3.5 million a week or something like that. So it would be tough to turn that down if you're a player. But I don't know what Vinicius Jr. and Real Madrid's stance on that whole idea is. I just think he's had a pretty shit season, Vinny Jr., compared to the one before and compared to the talent he undoubtedly has. And it just, I don't know, I just look at that Madrid team and see too many moaners. Too many people who just feel entitled that they should get every decision and every penalty and any foul that they want. And I feel like it looks quite toxic from the outside. Bellingham never stops mouthing off. Vinny Jr. seems to be always at it. Now, of course, the racist abuse Vinny Jr. received is despicable. And, you know, I think all of football has his back on that one. You know, no player should be subjected to some of that crap. But it just feels like there's an air of arrogance and entitlement that comes off a lot of those Madrid players out there on the pitch with the way that they gesture and speak to the referees. Losing EB would free up a non-homegrown, bring in Gay, and that's one spot done. Well, yeah, look, we've lost Diogo, so that's one that is freed up. Darwin moving on will free up another one. Diaz moving on will free up another one. So yeah, certainly there's options there. Still tough though, talking about the Diogo situation. Rafa said, congrats on the success of the channel. I moved to the US in 2018 and been watching since then. Thought you handled our Angel Jota sadness with respect. Thank you, mate. Without a doubt, the most difficult set of decisions and streams to go through. Like, the whole situation was so difficult to try to read, to figure out what was the most respectful way to do it. And in the end, you know, we went with doing a stream on the night that it happened because I wanted to connect with everybody and check in. Then we took 3 days off where we didn't do anything. And then we came back in and started the process. But yeah, man, it was tough for everyone. It was so hard in here, seeing so many of my fellow Liverpool fans and football fans hurting and feeling shocked. Yeah, certainly not a time I want to revisit anyway. This one. Paul, how are we, Paul? And again, thank you, Rafa, by the way. Appreciate you, sir. I have a good feeling we go one centre-back short into the season. On the DM situation, having Maka can help us with Wirtz and Szoboszlai in the advanced role. Thoughts? Maka, absolutely. Maka can drop back in if needs be, Paul. I think you're trying to suggest play the deeper role. Yeah, you can do that. He's not at his best there. I would say he's a bit better in the 8 or maybe even the 10, but certainly can do it. I'll be really angry, mate. I can't lie. I'll be really angry if we go into the season a centre-back short because we never replace Matip. Gomez, for all his talent, I don't think anybody with a clear conscience can expect him to stay fit for a season. So it would really feel like it would be undermining the good stuff we've done this summer if we went one short. It would be just a silly risk for me, and I hope it isn't the case. Virginia, Anthony said, Madrid are individual players and not a team. I think the biggest comparison, Virginia, is to look at the Madrid PSG game. So, for years we would never have said PSG team were some that were greater than the individual parts, but they are now. Not that they don't have quality players, they clearly do. But the selflessness, the work rate, and the effort that Enrique has those guys playing with is impressive. And they bitch slapped Real Madrid. Couldn't lay a glove on them. It was very, very clear to see that what a good group with a good manager that buy into the philosophy and that are selfless in their actions and that work for each other will always trump a group of individuals, in my opinion. And that was kind of our genius for a long time under Jurgen. We were better than the sum of our parts. Not that we didn't have good players, we did, but they were selfless. With your Bobby Firminos as an example, like doing the dirty work to allow Sadio and Mo to flourish. And I thought it was so apparent when you've seen PSG and Real Madrid, the difference of the character and the caliber of those players. Like, that PSG team is damn impressive. Then Chelsea bitch slapped them back. Yeah, that was such a surprise. It really was. Like, credit to Chelsea. They absolutely did not give PSG a minute, and they went and they hit them from the first whistle, and they set the tone early. But I'd be a liar if I said I thought it was coming and I would see it. I thought PSG were going to wipe the floor with them. But on the day, no doubt Chelsea deserved to win that game. Naturalist said, football is a team game, not a game of individuals. That's why Real Madrid will fail if they keep going the way they are now. Yeah, even with Alonso, who, you know, has the caliber to walk into that dressing room and remove some egos. But it's it just feels like a team of egos out there. It really does. I think they've all bought into their own hype and their own BS. Patrick Smith said, do you think Núñez can stay and play backup to EKITIKE? Not trying to upset anybody, genuinely wondering. Shout out from Cali. I don't know how to answer the question because theoretically, of course, but it isn't going to happen. Of course he could, yeah, of course. He could stay, be back up, compete with him. But he's going to know he's second choice, and I don't think he's going to be happy with that. And, you know, the thought process for the club is to move him on. But, yeah, of course he could. I just don't think anything would change, in all honesty. Yeah. And I get it. Look, I can understand people asking the question as well. Of course, it's always so difficult. You don't want to break someone's spirit when they're trying to support one of the players. But sometimes you just have to, not tough love, but you just got to be blunt with it and say, for all the wants and desires and best wishes, he's going. Where are the odds on Darwin staying, Paul? There won't be one because the odds 0. Again, I've been right with everything I've said this summer so far. And I think and I hope that I've at least earned some trust from people. And trust me when I tell you, Darwin Núñez will not be here by the end of the transfer window. I'm not saying you have to like what I'm saying. I'm not saying you have to agree with what I'm saying, but I'm telling you it is going to be a fact. Same way I told you Wirtz, Frimpong and Kirkes were all going to sign and you've nothing to be concerned about. Darwin, for no lack of want from the fan base, is going to move on. Andy said, love Darwin, especially through the latest stuff with Diogo, but there's no way he'll be a Liverpool player next season. Look, I get that. I do. And, you know, at times I really, really wanted Darwin to succeed as well. But the turning point for me was that social media post accusing the club of not playing him over 5 million payment to Benfica. I thought that was extremely petty, and I thought that it was extremely short-sighted from his point of view. You know, Liverpool played him a week later, so it clearly wasn't about that. The reason he wasn't being played was because the manager doesn't feel that he was good enough, rightly or wrongly. And that to me was the turning point where I just thought, nah, it's not going to change. Nothing's going to change because he's not taking responsibility for his own failings. When did the new shirt numbers get released? I would imagine when the Adidas stuff gets launched 1st of August. Yeah, because obviously they're going to feel they have to make up for a lot of lost time now because we're one of the very, very last to be releasing the new shirts. Probably, obviously, because of the change from Nike to Adidas, but I would imagine that will be the big push once they get at least, you know, here's Florian Wirtz in number, whatever it is. Here's Jeremy Frimpong in number. And I think I'm expecting record sales of those kits when they go out. Yeah, I think it's going to be crazy how many Liverpool shirts are shifted this summer. Purple Haze, a Canada replacement. Who you taking, Craig? Nkapie, Gay, Zabarini, Silva, Ordonez. Gay for me because he's the right age, Premier League proven. Probably get him for less than he'd be worth if he had 4 or 5 years to go on his deal. And we need to keep an eye on the homegrown. So I would say Mark Gay, but you know, some good options in there that you've mentioned. I like Nkapie as well, but I think Mark Gay and Nathan Collins would be another interesting one. Crazy sales with 20 on 2. Absolutely. Yeah, of course. Yeah, there'll be a lot of love for Diogo, and rightly so. Do you know anything about Dan's? Is he back from injury? Yes, I believe he is back from injury, and he's going on the preseason tour with the team to Hong Kong and Japan. Where are we at with this? Right, so we're asking for the final poll of the night. We've about 5 minutes left of the stream. Does Canada sign a new deal? Yes or no? So if you haven't voted, please do. And of course, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, we are 83 away now from 334,000 subscribers. Are there any updates on the young quality centre-back, Giovanni Leone? Nothing. And again, I can't tell you why. I can only guess that the club are trying to figure out Canada's situation before they proceed with anyone. Because the thought process, according to many credible journalists, was that Liverpool sell Kwanzaa and bring in another young centre-back. But if Canada's future is genuinely in doubt, and if they can't reach an agreement there, they might have to pivot somewhat there. So that's all I can think of, because certainly the club will know they need a centre-back. Where does this leave Endo now? Exactly where he was. I don't want to be disrespectful to say a bit part player, but that's Endo's role, and he seems happy with it, and he loves playing at Liverpool, and I think he's won Arna over. So yeah, look, Endo is just Endo. James, don't really have time, mate, for the roundup on the stream, but we'll be doing a roundup video in about 15 minutes. Off topic, said Tom Nygaard, but my wish and hope is that Gomez gets his first Liverpool goal. Yes, sir. I think a lot of us would be right there with you, hoping for that one. I hope it's a screamer as well, Tom. You know, something special. Do you know what though? I'd cry if he scores and it then it's VAR'd for some reason. Oh mate, can you imagine? Joe gets the goal in front of the cop, wheels away in celebration. We're all celebrating, and then VAR brings it back for some stupid infringement beforehand or something. Endo's the new Milner. Absolutely, Steve. Couldn't agree more, mate. He is. Thanal said, take a chance on EKITIKE. Okay, don't like gay though. She put a question mark in at the end of it, so I don't know if you're asking me, do I not like Mark Gay, or I don't know enough about Hugo EKITIKE. I've been honest about that to say I'm kind of trusting the club on that one. Mark Gay, look, he's not without concern. You know, he's not really early dominant in the same way that Virgil would be, or that Ibrahim Konate would be, but he's certainly more well-rounded, I would say, than Konate. Every time that we ask, is Konate or is Gay an upgrade on Konate, every single time I've run that poll, the answer's been yes. And I've done it 3 times, at obviously 3 different occasions. So I think the feeling is that Gay would be a solid piece of business. And I have to agree, I think it is. But again, every player will have attributes that we think they're lacking or could work on. Taylor Stewart said, I love the United fans celebrating Cunha and Mbeumo for a little more than Wirtz if they're going to play an extra man on the field. 205 million, I think it is, for Rasmus Højlund, Brian Mbeumo and Matheus Cunha. That's a substantial outlay for a questionable front 3, although Cunha has undoubted talent, and Mbeumo's the safe bet there, I think. You know, for the 70 million, I think he's the safe bet of the 3 of them. But it doesn't help when Omar Barada was trying to say that Matheus Cunha could have the same impact at United that Eric Cantona had. I mean, talk about putting pressure on the lad's shoulders. Oh, we're 48 likes short of 1,000. So if you can help me out in the last couple of minutes before we finish up the stream, if you can hit that like button. So Sunday I won't be streaming Sunday night because I'm going out for a family dinner. But Tomorrow, I will be back live. Probably start a little bit earlier. We normally start about 8:30 on a Saturday. So we'll start about 8:30 because obviously I want to watch the Usyk Dubois fight as well. So news video coming out in the next... It'll be out before 11 anyway. And then I'll see you guys tomorrow. There'll be a video at about 4:30, stream at about 8:30. And then, of course, a live video tomorrow night. So, yeah, look, I'm going to go record this update for everybody and go back over all the information that maybe we didn't fully get a chance to cover tonight. Thank you all so much again for coming in. I hope you have a great weekend ahead. Thank you to our sponsor, Surfshark, as well. And yeah, much love, guys. Thank you for dropping in. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.